Welcome back, everyone, in War Eagle. My name is Eddie Orantes, and I'm the Director of Business Operations for the Office of Alumni Affairs at Auburn University. For the next 30 minutes, your host of 18 minutes and 56 seconds, the Auburn Alumni Association Speaker Series. As a reminder, we're playing off the date of Auburn's founding, 1856, and this program is the newest way for you to interact with the Auburn family. Last week, we talked about smart money management during COVID-19. And this week, we will continue the conversation with an equally important topic, navigating your mental health during COVID-19. We want to keep this fast moving, so all our guests will talk or present or do whatever they do for no more than 18 minutes and 56 seconds. We also want to hear from you, so please ask those questions and interact by leaving comments on our Facebook page. We'll do our best to answer them in the half hour that we have together. And now I want to bring in our guests. Dr. Dustin Johnson is an Assistant Director for Outreach and Mental Health Initiatives and a licensed psychologist. Marquis Pasternak is a Coordinator of Outreach and Peer Education, focusing on health promotion and wellness services. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mental health is not only an important topic, but a crucial conversation to have at this time. So if you can please help us better understand self-care and how we can fit it into our daily lives during this time.
So talking about self-care, I think a lot of us have a preconceived notion of it, whether it is taking a bubble bath or going on a long run, thinking of kind of things we see out in the media about self-care and things like that. But self-care can actually be really interesting and multidimensional if we look into it. So if you were to Google self-care, the definition that comes up is the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health. And the interesting word in that is health, because health is multidimensional. A lot of us just think of physical and emotional health or physical and mental health. However, at Auburn in Health Promotion and Wellness Services, we look at health as a holistic idea that has 9 different dimensions. And these 9 dimensions are physical and emotional, like I referred to before, and the other 7 are spiritual wellness, intellectual wellness, career wellness, social wellness, environmental, cultural, and financial. And so those are our 9 dimensions. And when we look at self-care, we can look at how we take care of our health in all of those different dimensions. Referring to last week's episode, doing your taxes can be a form of self-care because you are caring for yourself, you're preserving and improving your own financial health.
Wonderful. If you can continue to expand on that, because I know that this is something that our viewership, college students, working professionals, as well as our alumni base would love to hear more about the different dimensions.
Of course. So what can self-care look like in different dimensions is what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay, so let's look at some of these more abstract dimensions, like spiritual health, right? So spiritual health does not need to include religion, although for many it does. So spiritual health for somebody who is religious could be praying, could be attending a service, and right now that might be over Facebook or over, Instagram Live or something like that. For those who do not identify with a religion, it could be meditation, it could be going out in nature, which now does look different, but is really important. Another dimension that I think has become super important in this day and age is environmental wellness. So when we say environmental wellness, I think a lot of folks tend to think right away, oh, it's about, preserving the environment and going green and being, recycling and being environmentally aware. And that is, of course, a huge part of it. But let's also think about environmental wellness as what is directly around us. Our environmental wellness in our context during COVID-19 has been shifted dramatically. A lot of us are quarantined in the same environment for days on end with the same people. Our environment stays the same in a lot of ways, and that can affect our health. So with these dimensions of wellness, they all intersect, they all affect each other. My environmental health and who I am in quarantine with can really affect my emotional wellness, which can affect my physical wellness and how, how lively I'm currently feeling to go outside and take a run, right? And so looking at how these dimensions intersect and reflecting in that is going to be really important when you're thinking about your own health and wellness. For example, you can take part of your health and wellness like sleep, right? And look at how each dimension affects it. Your environment is going to affect your sleep. If there's noise in the next room, it's going to be harder to fall asleep. If you're physically more tired, it's going to be easier to fall asleep. If you've got a bunch of thoughts running around in your head and your mind's too busy and your emotional wellness isn't very good, it's going to be harder to fall asleep. And you can go through each of these dimensions in any sort of your wellness and self-care.
Thank you so much. Now, I know that in speaking with Dr. Johnson a little bit, he does have some boosters that can help, in addition to understanding and building awareness around the dimensions, but boosters to help continue to define and clear the mind to be healthier. If you can talk a little bit about that, Dr. Johnson, I would appreciate it.
I sure can, and I got 3 of them for everybody. So, I'm a mental health therapist by trade. So you really want your self-care to be therapeutic. You want it to be healing. And based on it being healing, it's got to be intentional. As Marky talked about, 9 different dimensions of wellness. So you want to be intentional of, I think I need these dimensions in my self-care right now. So what it really boils down to is, you want your self-care to be mindful and not mindless. You're trying to tune into the things you need, not tune out away from the things that you need. So intentional healing things to touch on those different dimensions, that's what we're looking for. A second step I have related to that is you want to try to use your 5 senses. In this time of the pandemic and COVID, there's a lot swirling around in our heads. There's a lot that we're thinking about. There's a lot that we're worried about. What if this? What about my grandparents' health? When are we going to get back to what seems like normal? Job? What about going to the grocery store? All of these what ifs they have us in our heads constantly. So when you use your 5 senses, it gets you out of your head for a while. So any type of self-care that you can do where you're focusing on all the senses and think about like how many therapies are sensory related, aromatherapy, massage therapy, music therapy. When we think about our foodies out there, people who enjoy a good glass of wine, good cup of coffee, a good Toomer's lemonade, something like that. We're really focusing on our senses there. So a way to really get in touch with your senses, let's say you're going for a walk, try to focus on all 5 of them as you walk. You'll get so much more out of that activity than simply just trying to be someplace or go someplace. Listen to the birds around you, feel the coolness of the air, or, maybe the hotness in the air as we're getting closer to summer. Look for things you haven't seen before, so that you might be making the same walk with your partner, to kind of get out of the house, but you're noticing different things each time. And then finally, try to have as many of those different areas of wellness or functional areas, have your self-care touch on as many of those as possible. So for example, if you like to read for self-care, which I like to do, try to combine that with something else so you get more bang for your buck, so to speak. So if you're going to read, go outside, get some fresh air, get some sunlight. Melatonin will help you, help you physically. And then even get on the treadmill as well if you're wanting to read, or pace around if you're wanting to read. So again, you're getting some exercise, you're getting some movement, you're touching on as many of those different areas as possible. And just one last thing, many of you may be home with your children. They may be playing video games. They may be into Fortnite or something like that. Encourage them to do so, with their friends. So they're at least having some social interaction, along with maybe some of the mental and emotional stimulation they get, from playing those video games.
Well, that last one resonates well with me. I have 3 children. And so it's great advice. And I know that those who are listening now may even be wondering as well how to best use this time with their children in order to be able to maintain that health and that wellness. I know that coming out of COVID-19, we can be better people. At least that's the goal. And so it sounds like a lot of what you're sharing is that we do need to give ourselves that opportunity to assess, to really develop these techniques that you've just shared now in order to become better people after COVID-19. Now, if somebody needs resources, if we're looking for a place that we can go find this, can you guys talk a little bit about what is available through Auburn University?
Yes, so I'm going to show you our new website that came out this October called A Sound Mind. A Sound Mind comes from the Auburn Creed. I believe in a sound mind, a sound body, in a spirit that's not afraid. We took that sound mind piece and created an all-encompassing, all-inclusive resource for mental health online that is accessible to students, faculty, staff, parents, and alumni, and anyone else who really needs these resources. And so I'm going to share my screen with you all and take you through the website. Dr. Johnson, is there anything else you'd like to add before we get into the weeds?
I just want to say that the Counseling Center staff has vetted, and there's a lot of great things out there, but there's some not so great things. So everything that's on our website, we've given it a lot of thought and a lot of focus, and we hope you like what's on there. We really truly believe everything on there is useful.
Yes. And so welcome to the A Sound Mind webpage. You can simply find A Sound Mind by going to studentaffairs.auburn.edu/A Sound Mind, as well as simply going to Google and typing in Auburn A Sound Mind. This is going to be the first thing that appears in your search. And so, again, this website has plenty of different sections. An About section. Dustin was referring to this before, the what do you need help with section, where there's different topics about mental health that you can get resources that have been vetted by mental health professionals here at Auburn, including ADHD in different learners, anxiety, depression, dating and domestic violence, eating disorders, grief and loss, helping a friend, sleep. But what we'd like to focus on today is our specific page for mental and emotional self-care during COVID-19. We especially created this page for this time as a resource for our Auburn family. And so we have different resources on here about what to expect during this time. Sometimes there are typical reactions to a global crisis like a pandemic. Where you're going to feel anxiety, you're going to be concerned about effectively managing your life demands while choosing to isolate for your own safety and your own needs, and trying to balance that for your own wellness. And again, in all those different dimensions, whether we're talking emotionally, financially, physically, right? And so we can keep going down and see some not as typical reactions but that can still occur, including symptoms of depression, symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. And, we talk lower on the page and other places on the website where you can go and get help for these things. We have ways to support yourself during social distancing. So really focusing on that social wellness piece, connecting with others, maintaining a routine, and making sure you're engaging with other people during that routine to avoid those feelings of isolation and depression if you can. And so then we've got how to support someone who is social distancing. As we get farther into this, there may be folks who need to social distance for longer than we do, depending on their job, depending on their role, and things like that. And so how can we support somebody who also might be in a different situation in social distancing? Maybe they live alone and have less resources for their social health. And we can look at these things down here as well. And then one of our last sections is stopping social stigma. And so talking about the social stigmas on certain groups during this time and how we as an Auburn family can look at that and really try to combat that, as long as and not perpetuate those things going forward in our society during this time. And so we've got a lot of different resources on this page. If you find this page helpful as you dig into the weeds, please take our website survey and give us your feedback on what you want more of, what you liked, what you didn't, things like that. And so that is specifically our mental and emotional self-care during COVID-19 page. Are there any questions about that or anything you'd like me to expand on?
No, really, the one question I have is who has access to this? Who is this made available to?
Yes. So to kind of reiterate, anyone that has the internet has access to this. This is not a private Auburn website. This is for everybody. And so it is made with the Auburn family in mind, with Auburn resources in mind. But as you can see, we've got, links to TED Talks on here. If we go to other pages on the website, we have helpful apps and websites and things like that. Here, I'll show you the depression page, for example.
Okay.
We've got, basic information about depression, online resources, including apps and blogs, where you can understand more about depression and how to deal with those feelings and understand them better. Maybe understand somebody in your life who you're in quarantine with who might be experiencing depression. We've got videos that anyone can watch. And then at the bottom, we have on-campus resources more geared towards students and some towards faculty and staff. And so to get to this webpage, again, simply go in your search engine and type Auburn A Sound Mind. And a lot of these resources will be really helpful, whether you're an Auburn alumni, an Auburn student, or someone who doesn't have any affiliation with Auburn could probably find this information really helpful.
And I'd like to just say, at a time like this, when things can be very stressful, stressful periods and events in our life can pull out pre-genetic tendencies to become anxious, to become depressed, maybe even to have your mental health disrupted in some kind of way. So want to invite everybody not only to utilize the COVID page that we have, the COVID support page on the Sound Mind website, but also, the other links as well to other concerns that people have. We even have a stress management page, a more generalized stress management page on there as well. I also want to say real quick that A Sound Mind, the concept behind it, the website is just the physical space for it. But for those of you who may not know what our A Sound Mind initiative is, what we've really been doing on our campus is trying to make everybody a stakeholder, faculty, staff, even the folks, cleaning the hallways. Everybody buys into and understands that mental health is important, and good proactive mental health self-care and wellness, we're all a part of that. So if anybody's having a bit of a tough time, you should be able to talk to anybody, including alums, for support and guidance around it, not just a counselor, not just the mental health professional like you.
Wonderful. Thank you for explaining that. I think it's also important to be able to consider the questions that come through. And so this is that segment now where we get to answer some of those questions, if you don't mind. And the first question is going to Dr. Johnson. This one has to do with quarantine time. As restrictions are lifted, how do we navigate anxiety coming out of quarantine? You can share a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Well, I think one of the best things to do is to accept that there is going to be natural fear and natural worry around that. And it's really hard to know, what's natural and what's us going down the rabbit hole of what if this and what if that. And you're starting to get more and more away from what's actually a concern. So I think, anxiety and worry work best when they prepare you for situations, but with your preparation in place, you still should feel empowered to go out there and do what it is you're planning to do. So for example, if going to the grocery store really ups your anxiety, use that worry and that pre-anticipation, that fear, to really go there prepared. Have your gloves, have your mask, have the things that would help you feel comfortable. And know that a lot of the folks in that same situation are going to have the same fears, and they're going to operate, with the social distancing in mind, or the physical distancing in mind, just to make sure that, they're protected as well. So I think if you have good preparation in place to any threat that you might anticipate to your health and safety, you have good preparation in place, you should be able to operate okay in a situation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Here's a second question. Advice to first responders experiencing secondary traumatic stress.
Well, definitely, whether that be actual witnessing something or even vicariously, I think it's just a matter of trying to remain calm, trying to find your center, utilize all the help and resources that are around you. Don't forget to take care of yourself. Um, it can be tough out there. So again, use your anticipatory worry and fear about that to try to protect yourself. As a mental health professional, I've heard a lot of things that are difficult for another person to hear. I expect that to some degree going in. Put me in a mental and emotional frame of mind to be able to absorb what it is I'm taking in. So to our first responders there, you have a sense that you're going to encounter something challenging. It's just know the limit by which, even as a mental health professional, it's like, I know my limit of, I think I'm taking on a little too much. Don't feel afraid or concerned about being able to say, I think I need to take a step back. I think I need some help.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that oftentimes our mind can play games on us, and we may be too preoccupied with all the negative news. And so one of those questions that came up as well is how do you stay informed but not get depressed by watching too much of the news and build up that anxiety?
Real quick, I'm going to stop the screen share and get back to
Wonderful.
here. Yes.
Thank you. And I'll leave it up to either one of you to answer. If you can help some of our viewers better understand how to deal with watching the news, being informed, but not becoming anxious as a result of it.
I think with everything, and I was even going to recommend this with our self-care techniques, everything in moderation. Back to, you want your activities to be intentional. The reason we would want to watch the news is to stay informed. When you feel like you have a sufficient level of information, then it really, the news has outlived its usefulness for you. And I know that that's a hard thing to balance, right? I think we all have to figure out at some point, am I watching this because I really need the information? Or am I watching this because I've just become conditioned to receiving all of this information, and it's not really serving any kind of practical purpose for me? I think everybody knows that, when we were hitting our peak, it was scary. So I think sometimes watching the news, it's like all I'm doing is adding to fear. I know the fear, I know the risk. I don't think there's any usefulness in continuing to watch further. So it's just kind of knowing that for you when it's like, okay, I think I'm getting away from the intention I had here. I know what's going on. I think now it's just reinforcing some negative things.
Again, going back to those dimensions of wellness as well, right? When you're discerning whether or not to watch the news, are you watching the news for your physical wellness? So you're able to abide by public health and safety standards. That would be a great reason to watch the news. Are you watching the news? Maybe you're invested in the stock market. Maybe you're trying to figure out what to do financially, and you need to be watching those things for your financial wellness. Perfectly great reason to be watching the news. For your environmental wellness, so you know where you should go, where you can and cannot go, things like that, right? And what environments you're able to interact with during this time. However, what is the cost to your emotional wellness with the amount of consumption? And it's really taking that cost and the weighing the pros and the cons, the benefits versus the cost of that consumption of news, and looking at that holistic, those holistic dimensions of health while you're doing it, and taking all of your entire health into consideration.
Wonderful, thank you. I know that the area that you both spend time in are areas that are real, right? There's questions that come up. There are loved ones that we may have lost as a result of this pandemic, and it takes the community, it takes professionals like you to be able to help individuals through these times. And so I want to thank you again for making time to come on the show and to help us as an Auburn family better understand mental wellness. And so I'll leave you with this last question. since we're nearing the end of our show, and that is how to approach grief when a loved one has passed in the midst of the pandemic.
Well, I think with grief, everybody's relationship with the person that they've lost is unique. So the way that at the counseling center we talk to our students about approaching grief is it's an individualized process. So any expectations that others would put on you, or that you might even put on yourself, every situation's different, and the nature of that relationship is different. So its impact on you is going to be varied. And so I would just encourage you to it's going to be tough. And it's because you built something with another human being that was really powerful and really meaningful. Of course it hurts, and of course it's sad. And there's a lot of push for some people. I just want to get past these feelings. And in a way, the best way to get past it, you can't leave the feelings you have until you arrive at the feelings you have. So if a loss is creating really complicating feelings for you, you have to allow yourself some contact with it, and not give yourself grief on top of the grief for having those feelings. Like, of course I feel upset about this. This person was a rock in my life. And by being able to have contact with those feelings, you're in a better position to eventually, I don't know if we ever really fully move on from our losses, but you're able to at least get to a healthy distance from them, so you can move on with some.
And to add to that too, because we foresaw that during this time there would be a lot of dealing with grief and loss. The more we got into COVID-19, we actually at the beginning, so back in mid-March, we created a new page on the A Sound Mind website specifically addressing grief and loss. And so if you go to the what do you need help with tab on the website, grief and loss is an option. And to just recognize too that grief and loss can look so differently for different things. So at the beginning of this pandemic, a lot of folks were getting referred to that section of the website because they were grieving their academic school year that they thought they were going to finish and then they didn't get to. They are grieving, maybe that graduation ceremony, grieving their wedding that was supposed to happen this summer that had to get canceled, all different things. And so we have resources on that webpage for grieving a person and for grieving events and things we were looking forward to that we have to reconcile with during this time.
Wonderful information. We are nearing the end of our segment, and I want to thank both you, Dr. Johnson, and Marquis Pasternak, for your insight and outstanding advice. As the Auburn family, we need to reach out to more people and talk to each other in order to stay mentally healthy, and use the resources that you gave us by simply Googling Auburn Sound Mind. Thank you again for coming, and I hope that you'll come back if the opportunity is there to have you back on this show. I just want to let everybody know that they can join us next week, May 7th at 11:30, when we get to spend 18 minutes and 56 seconds getting to know Chloe Melass. She has an inspiring story, and we are proud of her accomplishments as an entertainment reporter for CNN. You don't want to miss it. I want to thank both of you. Let's stay safe, and War Eagle.
War Eagle.
War Eagle.